we'll start and I'll pick up. You can pretty much drop in and come and go as you please, and we're going to participate. In fact, I'm looking forward to participation. I'd really recommend that you sit next to a person. I won't be asking whether we're standing upright. Yeah, just barely.
No wonkas, I say no wonkas.
Right.
No wonka.
No, I'm good. All right.
You promise to join me?
Yeah. Okay, my name is George. It's a pleasure to be here with you. I'm so happy to-
Ah.
African American.
Ah, okay, let's get a quick jump start. I know people are, feel free to eat and drink coffee while we're talking, it's not a problem. I would do the same, but then I'm not a very good talker and eater at the same time. I just wanted to welcome you. We'll be talking today about teaching myths and learning challenges. I'm sure you have many of them to share as well. And we'll try to work through the program very quickly. Very easy. I'm a regional, what we call a regional English language officer. I've served in many different areas of the world. Basically, I tell my story now with a bookmark, so I want to be sure you have a bookmark. Everybody have a bookmark? Okay. If you need an extra one, there's no charge for giving one away. Yeah. Basically, this highlights a lot of the work we do, especially on the back, and be helpful. Feel free. No problem. I'm not going to quiz you on it or anything. Take on it.
Did I come in time to get something free?
Sure, sure. You just missed it. You want the lucky draw. Here.
How do you say it?
Also,
Well, I'm here right now, I don't have a time.
You are going to need partners, somebody to work with. You can talk to yourself, but that sometimes gets conflicting.
Should be somebody you know.
Not necessarily.
Better for me, you know.
You're welcome either way. So I thought if you're at a KOTESOL conference, you helps to make Anyway, good.
We've got all kinds of different kinds
Can you all hear me or am I?
Oh, 괜찮아.
You're all right? All right. So, I've been involved with language teaching since dinosaurs walked the earth, since before fax machines. And I'm sure you remember vinyl records. Those were a very big hit when I was growing up. So, a lot of the myths and challenges we're talking about are ones you've had, and ones I'm sure you've encountered through the years. I'll just give you some, and then we'll go to a handout you can take with you, and we'll work on that. North Asia, that's why we're here. Globally essential. The reason why I'm bringing this up is because when you look at myths and challenges, you can see a drive for learning a language, and these are some of the elements, as we see now, with why English is considered, or North Asia first, considered globally essential. Education, infrastructure, broadband, leader, patents, technology, gaming, electronics, automobiles, shipbuilding, plus in the case of Korea, you have K-pop. All of this evolves into really the idea of North Asia being essential. So thank you for contributing to the language learning here in North Asia, especially Korea. Globally important, we all know the drill. Why is it important? International diplomacy, business, commerce, science, technology, and travel. That's pretty standard. But what's interesting is more important here. There are about 4 times more non-native speakers of English than there are native speakers. This is important for many reasons. Many of my colleagues, I'm sure most of your colleagues, are non-native speakers. Actually, they are the majority of speakers of English worldwide. There's trends here that point to English as a global world language and its impact on not only the classroom, but on the use of English itself. Important figure to remember, very important. Okay, this is part of the network here. I know it sounds a little bit like grad school, but it's something to really consider to see where our list of ideas come from. Gave 4 points, and you can consider true or false. Children learn second languages quickly and easily. Younger the child, more skilled. Children have acquired a second language once they can speak it. And the last one, all children learn a second language in the same way. Which ones are true? Which ones would be false? Okay, we're moving quickly. Why don't you just check with your friends, your new friends if you have them.
All children names. A lot of they learn older.
So much of that, because I mean, that's when you're
Okay, I'm not gonna,
And also, you're not afraid
I don't want to belabor.
older. That's scared and intimidated.
I'm not gonna belabor.
exactly.
Since we all come from a participatory or engaged classroom.
Also, you say false, they say that's,
So number one, true or false? How many do you think true?
well, which one?
Number one. Any takers on true? Okay. Any takers for number one on false? Okay, how about two? Younger the child, the more skilled in acquiring a second language. How many do you think true?
Pronunciation is certainly true.
Okay, you caught me there. That was part of my talk.
I think it's
Actually,
not-
you're right. It's probably true for pronunciation. But other than that, not really. You have a shift, and you think we saw it with the proto-conversations and beliefs that children become very skilled at an earlier age. Not necessarily true. Pronunciation would be true, for example, for 1 and 2.
I think that what it is with two is they have not built up the barriers that you build up over time.
Sure. The affective barriers are cognitive, sure. How about 3? True or false? Children have acquired a second language once they can speak it.
Not necessarily.
How many of you think true? False?
Depends on the kid.
Okay,
It's a definition.
right,
That's part of
Everything,
Right.
the 4 skills, the reading, writing, speaking, listening.
right. In fact, this is linked to the cognitive and academic literacy basis. Speaking is good, it's great. Many of us have proficiency and possess spoken freedom. But the written academic or the cognitive higher levels, a lot more challenging.
You know, that's the problem with learning it is at older age, you're learning all 4 skills at once.
Right.
And that's difficult.
Okay.
Because like, think about when you learn your first language,
Uh-huh.
by the time you learn to read and write it, your spoken vocabulary is very vast.
Okay.
Also, I'm sorry to interrupt, but also there's something called BICS and CAL, Basic Interpersonal Communication Skills. That's the listening and speaking skills that there are people who are very proficient in a foreign language. When it comes down to the cognitive academic language proficiency, specifically the academic test of reading and writing, well, that's pretty doggone tough compared to listening and speaking.
Right. Right, I think you have a different almost skill set and cognitive sense. How about 4? All children language, second language, same way, true or false?
False. Definitely false.
False, yeah. 4 is always a dead giveaway, it's false. Yes, ma'am?
Number 2, I'm thinking that there's a certain age, I think it's between age 6 and age 8,
Uh-huh.
where I remember I had a German lady live next door to me, and she would never talk to me in English, she always jabbered away in German, and I jabbered away back to her in German. And to this day, I forget everything I learned, but I was speaking to her in German. I think there's an age where you can learn how to speak if you're exposed to it.
Okay, that does, right. And again, the issue here becomes pronunciation, spoken, but losing it later on in life without exposure or continued work. And we have the BIGS and the CAL, the cognitive, and the interpersonal interacting as well. Hopefully we can see already that there's going to be ideas and challenges as to how we're going to approach our own teaching based just on these. Bear with me a bit. I had to get this picture. It says, go back, you're going the wrong way.
Well, where's the article?
What?
Where the heck is the article?
Actually, this was a road.
Well,
Well, yeah, I just took the picture for the content, but you're right, it is missing the article. You're going the wrong way. had to get the pictures, I thought that was incredible. Just for highlighting some of the issues we constantly need to reconsider. And your grammar point's well taken. Now, if we were more, how do you say, cosmic about it, we would say we're going a wrong way.
I'm not going to go that way, doesn't mean I'm going the wrong way.
Yeah, all right. Okay, here we go. Let's go here. Here's 7. And I'm expanding it a bit now to our actual classroom. Let's rapidly take a quick peek. How about 1? Your students acquire English the same way children acquire their native language, or their L1. True, false? Yeah, I would say false. Have to be careful here because untrained teachers, sometimes parents, other community people say, well, my children learned the language without any classroom experience or formal exposure. How about 2? Simple secret key to acquiring English easily and without study.
Not very secret.
It's very secret. I'm still waiting for the secret to be revealed. Now, what's interesting here, though, is sometimes I see this on. I see many of these, for example, on advertising or by word of mouth. For example, well, for 3, if you had the secret, you would be worth millions of dollars, and you would not be working 40 hours a week. Right. There is no secret key. It's just not there. Some people believe that, though. I was at a meeting once and people asked me, well, what's the answer? I go, there's like 3 choices and all of them are good. You have to decide among your community. How about 3? You don't have to memorize anything to learn English. True or false?
False. I think learning anything always takes certain amount of memorization.
Okay. Any other takers?
Well, if you give proper models and examples, the students can do it, and then you give them models and examples, and they can tinker with their own creativity, and then it complements with memorization from the students I work with.
Okay, that would probably be due to repeated exposure, for example.
But they need to make this dialogue.
Right, that'll come back to materials and curriculum. Thanks.
Depends if you go with the natural approach or the grammar approach.
All right,
If you go with the grammar approach, you gotta do a lot of memorization.
all right. And natural approach?
Natural approach. It's not memorization, it's just,
Right.
yeah, it's just
Exposure
experience.
and.
It's just hearing it over and over and over.
Sure. So I'll get back to certain.
There's probably some middle ground between the two, between the form focused approach and
Fluency focus.
focused.
Very well said. Very well said. Yes.
I was just going to say, talking about memorization in the Asian context, let's sit there with a list, then, but to know something, to retain it, that's a slightly different idea.
Right. It comes back to the idea of myths and challenges. Teaching styles versus perceived ways of learning. I'm sure you have these challenges. I've had these challenges continually. No, we do it this way. So just keep all these in mind. How about 4? You don't need grammar to learn English. True?
I learned English without grammar.
Okay.
I learned English with grammar.
You learned the grammar as you were learning the English.
You learned grammar while you learned English together. You learned it without grammar. I don't know.
I'm going to keep coming back to my Asian comment, because even in my current teaching context, where I'm a co-teacher who supposedly gives them the grammar chance, and I take care of the communicative aspect, if you're talking about it in that sense, where here's the grammar, then, but think of how we learned to speak our first languages. Nobody was overdosing in the grammar rooms and all.
That's the problem. We think of grammar as something objective.
right.
It's there. Grammar is just the way we put our language together. That's all it is. So we have to have every language has
It
grammar.
always has
Children learn it as
grammar,
they're learning it naturally. So
Okay. Yes? Okay. Where do we go with grammar? Okay, it's always a hot point. I'll just straight. But actually, with grammar, I think it needs to be there in some way, shape, or form if you have a formalized classroom setting.
you can't speak the language without the grammar.
Well, you could get templates. Hello, how are you? I need to go to, I want to buy X.
You couldn't communicate without grammar.
You could probably be survival functional.
Words.
Yeah.
Words.
Words and a lot of good pointing and gesturing.
Yeah, that's not the language.
I think one other quick thing is what bothers me about number 4. using a terminology of grammar in the classroom. Yes, I use the word pronoun, and yes, I use the word modal. So that when you get to 15 and you've been studying English and I say, you need to put a modal there, you know what it is. It's not heavy duty dosing of grammar terminology, but you need to use a terminology. And you go to your
Okay, well,
doctor's
that's,
office.
okay, that's a metalinguistic,
Right.
yeah.
And so you said that you don't need grammar to learn English. I had a different experience teaching at Hudson County Community College in Jersey City, New Jersey.
Yeah.
I taught level 0 ESL, and some of my students were immigrants from Egypt.
Yes.
And this may shock you. They have high level of basic interpersonal communication skills to be managers of fast food restaurants, like Domino's Pizza and Dunkin' Donuts. They can communicate to anyone in this room right now. But their grammar, like how to have proper grammar, proper writing skills, are not there in an academic sense. But they can communicate to customers, the delivery guy, the food inspectors, no problem.
Good.
What about that?
Yeah, that, again, that would, to me, that's still a social functional. If the grammar's not in, it's hard to proceed to higher levels. It goes back to your call aspect.
I mean, this guy, if you're a manager of a fast food restaurant, you gotta be on your toes and communicate with everybody.
Right.
Different constituents.
Pragmatics.
Well, the big test would be here is can he go to his next door neighbor and borrow his chainsaw?
No.
But, and that's in the United States, but in Korea is a different context. This is EFL, mine is ESL from.
Right.
New
The
Jersey.
ESL context would be more supportive,
Yeah.
at least not at the, yes, sir.
Well, to me, it seems like in learning Korean, the grammar seems to be more important than in English.
Yes.
Because, I speak broken Korean to somebody, you're just asking for something they don't understand. And it's because I don't have my grammar right. I mean, I know what I'm trying to say, although it's in Korean, but they don't understand the broken language.
Okay.
Just one, I think we're using the word in the wrong sense. Because I think you're talking about grammar as an objective thing, you're talking about the rules of language, but grammar is the structure that is embedded in language. And every language has it equally. Children are learning it as they're adjusting it. But you can learn grammar by being taught grammatical rules, and that's what you're talking about, I suppose. Rather than learning it from the inside, as in all language.
Yeah, that's a stylistic but you're right, formation. How about number 5? That'll get everybody going here. You don't need a teacher to learn English.
He is a robot.
Just a robot.
I've seen the robots, yeah. Okay, apart from the robots, do you think that's true or false? You don't need a
Do
teacher.
you want us to be antagonistic? Teacher could be not necessarily a formal teacher, as your mother, your grandmother, anybody in your environment where you interact with.
The language context,
Exactly.
Okay.
But another thing, if you are a good teacher, you put yourself out of business, don't you? Because you eventually, it's just like learning to fly the plane. Eventually you fly solo.
Okay.
So that's,
Sure. Well, what are some other good words here? You don't need a mentor to learn English. You do need a mentor or a manager, advisor.
You need somebody to talk English with. You get, like I went to,
Yeah.
was in French, and when I was in school, I'd like to take it, like I had to learn, I had to take it whether I liked it or not, I was stuck there. And I didn't like it. And finally, when I got older, I said, I'm a total idiot if I don't leave this place with the French, I have to learn French. And I went into every store, and I decided, I said, I'm gonna tell them I'm American, because they love Americans, but they hated the English Canadians, the French in Quebec, this was in Quebec. I lived in Montreal, Quebec, and I grew up there. So I said, je suis américaine. And I would have an hour-long conversation buying a loaf of bread. And I learned the language.
Really?
See, I didn't
The
talk to
German
them.
lady wasn't a teacher, though.
Okay,
I didn't
well,
need a teacher.
keep that in mind. Okay, thanks. That's good to know.
I taught myself.
How about 6? Go based on your experience in
Yes.
the boulangerie. Interaction will teach you English.
Yes, that's what we aim at.
You have to
It's-
decide,
it's
it's a
in-
decision.
like I come from South Africa, and
Yeah.
in South Africa we have like 63 different languages, 11 official languages. So in elementary school you get exposed to many languages, and we were forced to study at least 3 languages at school, even if you didn't want to. But the best way to learn was not in the classroom when the teacher was doing the grammar or whatever. The best way was when we were outside playing sports and we had to communicate to our team to pass the ball or to give them instructions. Yeah. So the interaction definitely helped with.
Interaction's a big plus.
You say real world communication, right? That's,
Real world
you know, that's
communication.
coming back to that memorizing. That's when you really get a grip on that language or that word because you had to use it in a conversation.
Okay.
You know, so.
I always make these tricky because there's a lot of ways we could build these. If you move it into an academic sphere, it shifts your focus. But you can see how this builds a base on how we're teaching or how we develop our own work in the classroom, how we approach it. And finally, the last one. The native language should never be used in learning English. False. 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 Thank you. False. Everybody
One
agree?
has its place and time in the L2 classroom.
There's a great advantage to being bilingual, and many of you are blessed with it. Being bilingual is very strong. The challenge becomes in the management side. How much should you use in the English classroom? That's what the real challenge. It's a management issue. But using the L1 or native language, please, by all means, look for the balance, look for the management of it. I'm sure many of you have done this to your teachers. You ask them to explain because you don't understand. The teacher goes on for 20 minutes. The bell rings. Thank you, teacher. Out the door. It's really a balancing act, but a great resource. All right. Actually, this is taken from a gentleman named Robert Lotto. I don't know if any of you remember.
Lotto Institute, Washington, D.C.
Well, yeah, this was,
The transcript analysis.
right, exactly. He was, and from the Lotto Institute. He's passed away, but it was interesting. He was very into audiolingual. Repeat, retreat, pattern drills. But he came up with these questions, and it generated the same kind of discussion at his presentation. So I've always kept these. Yeah, very much so. But it just shows some of the, challenges and some of the mythology of learning the language. Imagine if we presented this to parents.
No, but you need it.
Yeah. But how many of you have had supervisors that have told you some amazing things about English as well? I'm not talking language supervisors. I'm just talking either in a corporate setting or a school setting. I've had one supervisor that said, 0 hours to 400 hours, the students will learn these 50 things, straight line. And I go, that's really amazing. I've never ran into a student who could do that. He said, yes, but you will teach them. So you run into the teaching and learning equation. Yeah.
But no disrespect meant, but this is why even recently I've seen more and more of this, if you're going to be teaching English or anything, you need formal training. A lot of this gets covered in formal TESOL courses, second language acquisition, first language acquisition.
Training, conference participation, sort of lifelong learning.
Yes, and also, another thing we must take into consideration is how to work with the culture in our classroom. Are you familiar with certain aspects of Korean culture like nunchi, chemyeon, gibun?
Which one is that?
Nunchi is like when the East Asians, it doesn't work with young ones. Like, that East Asian student do not formally say what they think.
Right.
They use their eye language.
Right.
And then they judge who you are about your body language, tone of voice, your motivations. And then people think, oh, they're pretty darn sneaky. It increases stereotypes, oh, they're sneaky, mysterious people. Or Shamyon is loss of face. It's like when students are like, oh my God, you see people get arrested on TV, and how come they don't participate? Shamyon, the loss of face. If I say the wrong word, boo-boo with the fluency, and the vocabulary, accuracy, that's loss of face. And also something about kipun is feeling. Those are three things, those are certain aspects of culture which are quite relevant to the students we're dealing with. It also depends on the age of the pupils.
Right. And that would impact also on some of these ideas here as well. Good. Thanks. Go back, going the wrong way. Just keep thinking about these points I bring up. They have to be negotiated with everyone, not only with your colleagues, but with your supervisory staff and your students. So, where does it end up? It ends up with don't worry about what anybody else is going to do. The only way really to predict the future is to invent it yourself. And I'm talking here basically about developing it in your classroom or as a teacher. It's an interesting person, Alan Kay. A long time ago, 1971, he invented a language, computer language, in design called Smalltalk. Okay, for the geeks in here, Smalltalk was the original operating language that Bill Gates and Steve Jobs took to build Apple and Windows, Microsoft Windows. So this is back in '71, but they basically took the Smalltalk and made it into what it is now for an operating system. But I love the quote. you're gonna work in the future or plan for the future, you really have to invent it. Don't really wait for the memo to tell you that the future is here. So let's look at it, how it applies to our classroom. Student performance in a classroom generally can improve or diverge by about 50% based on teacher input. So your teaching does have a direct effect on your students. Important to remember, it's a 50% influence. What about the other 50%? Where does that come from? Context, textbook, student motivation, the language lesson, the curriculum. You do have a significant role. What I'm saying is your elements, but remember we said you don't need a teacher to learn English. You do need a teacher, especially on the performance side or the developmental side. So just a little factoid. This is interesting. This basically, I took from Jack Richards and made it into a graph. 30 years ago is when I did my studies, my language studies. Of course, now is actually 35 years ago, but it dates a little bit. If you look at some of the differences, you'll see some immediately where we're getting a lot of the current thinking, past thinking, challenges, items like that. If you look, 30 years ago, English was cultural enrichment. Your literature professors taught English, okay? But now it's a practical tool. Today it's a world language. There's a de-linkage between English, American English, British. There's really not a connection. You really have more of a stronger connection to national values. I think you see this here, for example, in Korea, where English is a world language used for development, commerce, trade, and so forth. But be real careful here. 30 years ago, native speaking accent was considered the target. That doesn't happen anymore. It doesn't exist. But I always get this question, we need a native speaker accent. I go, well, good luck. If you ever get this issue, and I'll give you a good talking point. How many of you remember a gentleman named Henry Kissinger? Right. What's interesting with Henry, Dr. Kissinger, if he spoke, he had a heavy German accent.
Yeah.
Brilliant, one of the most brilliant men in the world, but he would never get the perfect, he doesn't have a native speaker accent. I'm not worried about it. If he talks to me, I'll be more than happy to listen.
Same thing like Schwarzenegger, same thing. I mean, and he could afford a tutor, but what would the purpose of it be?
Right.
You know?
Right, exactly. Yes.
Which is why we have, again, it's the issue of comprehensibility. That's why it's not like just, can I understand you? Yes.
Yeah.
And that's it. Especially for international communication.
Right.
You don't have to sound American.
But be careful of the myth. That's where it gets to.
I never want to invent that.
Oh, well, thank you.
And like with the stat you gave earlier about 4 times
Yes.
non-native speakers,
Right.
well, why should the native speaker accent be the target?
Right, exactly.
More than likely you will encounter a non-native speaker when you speak English.
Perfect. In fact, 35 years ago, you see this massive shift. So English teachers have been doing their job. I think we've been trying to reframe it as well to make English more accessible for everyone. But that's a key myth point for a lot of people.
You might notice I have, a strong accent, meaning people say, I used to be a tour guide too, and some people would say, well, you're difficult to understand, but I'm in my native area, and then the more I thought about this and through seeing other situations, just because something sounds different, that doesn't mean it's have to be difficult, just because it's different.
So they came with those little perceptions.
Yeah.
My tour guide should sound like this. My English teacher should look like this. It's all of these things.
Yeah.
You don't have an accent, Jerry, everybody else does.
The thing about the discrimination that goes on in the hot one, like, oh, we want someone who looks like a white female, looks like a movie star, or a white male, who looks like Brad Pitt.
That's a selling
Female looks like Lady,
That's okay.
sexy like Lady Gaga, all in the hot ones will make heck of a lot of money, which is a part of my life, a crock of bullshit.
Sometimes
But that's okay
A
because.
lot of challenges here.
Stay with me.
sometimes people misinterpret the content because of the accent.
Yes.
So if your accent is, let's
sounds nicer, they think your English is better. You could be saying something totally nonsense, but the way it sounds, was good.
Which is hinging on his point, which is
Yeah.
why that's not a bad thing. It'll keep English instructors employed in Korea for another 10, 15 years because they're going to employ people who look good, who might be properly trained to teach English, and are not going to be effective English instructors. That's all.
It's just style over substance nonsense.
Well, we all run into this, and I'm just trying to highlight these elements so you can be sure that you can discuss them on a rational basis as much as you can. It's very interesting, though. It's many issues in many places. Let me just go on here a bit. So, let's go back to the classroom now. Our world. 4 elements. Keep this in mind. 4 elements. Simply, the classroom lesson is simply a unit in the curriculum. We know that. You open the books, here it is. It's an instance of your teaching, be it prescribed or be it constructed, however you train. I like number 3 here, number 4. It's a pattern of social activity. Now, obviously what I'm doing now is not what you probably want to do in your classroom. I talk, you listen, I'm in front, that's how it works. Social activities define how you create your classroom. Pair work, group work, many of these challenges are based here under the pattern of social activity you do in your classroom. It's not easy to do new things. I haven't seen a turtle fly yet, but when you look at trying to do pair work or group work, think about that. If you're going to begin pair or group work, how many times should you try to do this before you give up?
Young learners, college students, no problem.
Okay, how about middle or high school?
Oh, mother of mercy.
Okay. I always advise teachers at least 3 times. And never invite your supervisor for the first 2. Don't do it. You're building a new pattern of social activity. It's a managerial item. And finally, the encounter between human personalities. What do you do with a student who's actually quiet in any language?
Go back to motivation. Why exactly?
Motivational?
Well,
Goal setting. Why exactly?
Okay.
I've had cases that were adults, there might be an adult, if they're very quiet in the class, but if you call on them to read, they read beautifully. They were just a quiet person. They could do it,
Which is why you always have to have a variety of activities in the classroom, so
Right.
you get to play the different people's strengths and personalities and learning styles, yes.
Sure, multiple and Howard Gardner's multiple intelligence is a perfect example.
Yeah, the idea of inclusivity would be a big one. But keep this in mind when you're doing your lesson. It's not so much here, 1 or 2. This 2 is you, 1 is the textbook. 3 and 4 become your managerial skills, your way of setting up the operation. Now, I only have about 10 more minutes. I'll go on for 5 here. I love this one. Best way to teach, again, 35 years ago. Very clever here. Methods, audiolingual, prescriptive, and now what we call post methods. What's the other C word people use now when they're working with teacher training? I hear a lot of C words. Call, yeah. Constructivism.
Student-centered learning,
Right.
constructivism,
Constructivism is where you're building your own teaching method. So constructivism, post methods, you see this used a lot. You don't see methods played a lot, unless you go to a language school where they say you must teach this way.
Because it tends to be very prescribed, yes.
Right,
To be trained in it, and you will find a couple of schools like that have this.
What's the key hook for constructivist development as a teacher?
Make the lesson student-centered as much as possible.
Right. Well, there's an intermediary. What would that be? What would you do if you were advising teachers or thinking about it or constructing your own teaching? What's the hook?
It sounds as though you have to be well knowledged in your methods and approaches. In the
Right.
first place, you have eclectic style, and then you
Okay.
basically aggregate.
You've already graduated.
Oh,
Done? Yeah. Okay. Here's the trick. It's reflection. By reflecting on it, use a notebook, a recorder, something just to jot down some notes. That's what they're doing in a lot of classes. But exactly right. It's constructive by reflective, leading into a more post methods. So yeah, If I'm looking at a class, I'll look at what the teacher is doing. But I will always ask the teacher, what are you doing? For example, I had one teacher once that decided the students should only learn the alphabet by contorting their bodies into the ABCs. Okay, right. But yeah, you know. Well, he was an elementary school teacher. And I said, okay, I could do the YMCA stuff, but I mean, what do you do for X and Z? But anyway, when you're working with it, you have to be able to explain what it is you're doing and why. That's all. And be able to do that. All right, so there's all the highlights here. I think this one here is good. Teaching outside the classroom, teacher is input. And again, here you have largely the internet to thank for that. The last one here, and then I'll pretty much call it a day pretty soon. Methodology was key 35 years ago. You had your professor, you read the book, you listened, and you taught the same way. Now a lot of it's corporate training, the idea of management, managed classrooms, time management, systems analysis. Just keep all this in mind here. This is what's happening currently, or where we'd like to go. The question is, can you do all of this at the same time? Here we go. Photo time. 2 classrooms. One of them carved in stone, if you will. I don't know where this is. Mr. Google gave me the picture, but forgot to tell me where it's located. And the other one, of course, is, I think it's a commercial website. Okay, quick differences.
That's what, that picture right there, that's more into constructivist knowledge, where students are like actual knowledge, potential knowledge, and they're scaffolding along the way to reach a target goal, and they learn at their own pace. At that, the latter picture, take it or leave it. We don't need no education. We don't need no thought control. Or just another brick in the wall, Pink Floyd, huh?
All right.
The other one, that looks like they're learning to use, apply the language as they're learning it.
Right. Project-based, or a lot more thematic-based. Now, actually what's happening a lot in Korea is over here. One of the modeling classes. I know in your classrooms or classroom I visited, it might not be exactly the same. But keep both in mind. It's not I tend to talk in either or, but really not. It's a continuum. I think you would work both ways across, bring lessons or what have you. This one I like because there's no teacher. Well, this person's not the teacher, and I know these people are. So the teacher is not here. You look here, it's teacher fronted. Just look at the books. Books scattered all over the table. Books up here in the library, but they're stuck in stone. Keep this in mind when you're working and what points. All right, this is why we got here, and this is why we came. Here are the 7 points. And rather than me talk, this is more of a cognitive item, but feel free to use it. Okay, so I gave you my master. I just pulled this off the internet about 3 months ago. There was a big discussion on it. 7 minutes about learning. For example, we talked about basic facts come before deep learning. In other words, do the students need to have a grip on more grammatical elements or more formalized elements before they go into it? I have extra copies. One more? Sure. Okay. Yes, sir. I'm sorry, I didn't catch you. Callow 2, rigorous education means the teacher talking.
Depends on the subject, so.
Okay. How about for a language class? Well, yeah, I would disagree with that too.
Number 2, number 1, sorry.
2 is interesting. Doesn't mean the teacher talking. How about 3? Covering it means teaching it. Covering it means I taught it. We're done, yeah. So these are, again, keep these in mind because you will hear these arguments that when you teach. Okay? 4, teaching the student interest means dumbing it down. Dumbing it down. There's a lot of student interest. I know in high schools, of course, there's all kinds of interest. Elementary may be more challenging, but you do have your family, your community, your school. don't think of it as dumbing it down.
An example is I teach content courses also, I have culture and sociology. And I have certain topics that we're supposed to cover.
Yeah.
And yet if we get off on a tangent, if the students are interested and get off the direction,
Yeah.
I don't mind that at all. If they're engaged in the topic,
English,
if we get behind in other things, I say, well, forget about that, but we've covered this really well, and they're enjoying it. So they are discovering things.
Right, exactly. They're constructing.
And it's the same thing, I mean, I'm at university levels, if I'm teaching a group of nursing majors, some of them might be going into psychiatry, some of them might be going into whatever, that's their interest.
Sure.
That has nothing to do with dumbing anything down.
Right, but you gotta be careful, because these are some of the arguments that you
Right,
see
no,
over
yeah.
here. I like 6. A quiet classroom means good learning.
Sure does.
And depends where you are, young and
It's more empty.
Yeah, all right, he's better. Just keep all these in mind, because this goes on for your entire career, actually. Okay, so, teachers face challenges in classroom preparation, classroom management. Take these 7 points. We'll skip this. Some of the elements I'd recommend: supplement students in making visuals, moving management using themes, stories, classroom routines. A lot of these elements we talked about very briefly in the language lesson. All right. Hints, I'm sort of running out of time, but you all already sound like you have the hints. Take some risks. Teamwork, video. Don't worry if you're confused. I always like number 7, very brief explanation is now 1. Trust your hunches, raise good guesses, make mistakes work for you, and set your goals. So, classroom teaching can improve only to the extent that teachers themselves act as specialists. All I'm trying to do is give you some working ideas. I spell specialist, but all right, word from our sponsor. How many of you have ever seen Forum magazine? Baker? 2. Good.
You have to ask me why.
Oh, okay, why? I'm sorry.
Okay, 2 words to you, Brody Hale.
Who?
Brody Hale.
Really?
Oh, nice.
Where did you get that from?
Because I'm teaching with him and I'm a former elf for China, that's why.
Ah,
You haven't met me yet.
okay,
So I was
all
gonna
right.
meet you after.
That's right, I think you're way ahead of
Yeah, you
me.
know who I am by name.
Okay.
We haven't met.
This is, these are collector's items. Actually, what we'd like to do, do you have a copy? You can share? Sorry. Please feel free, so now I'll also help you if you need a copy. The reason why I'm giving you these is, one, because they're collector's items. Actually, they're not in print anymore. We just got these and the print run sold out, so they're not going to be printed again. But if you go to forum.state, this issue.
Oh, okay.
If you go to forum.state.gov, you can download it. So if you're working with teachers and you find articles, you go to the site and download the PDF, these articles. This was just posted. Myself, there's 3 articles in here I recommend you look at. The first one is Generation Y, not WHY, Generation Y.
Millennial generation, I'm Generation X.
Yeah.
They're baby boomers.
How could you tell? Yeah.
You remember when the Rolling Stones were in their prime?
Yeah. All right, anyway, we have baby boomers and Generation X, and finally we have Generation Y. Very different in styles and approaches. Maybe not in the classroom, but maybe on a personal level. Keep this in mind in developing your lessons. The other 2 articles is what makes a good teacher, 10 characteristics. I think that's what it says, isn't it? Page 36.
Yeah.
Yeah. Take a look at that. That's worth thinking. It still works. And there's one other one, the speaking class, like page 29, the conversation class. That's actually from the real time of the dinosaurs, 1969. I remember having to read that, not 1969, but about 5 years later. Talking about the different elements in a conversation class. These are good points to work with, not only with yourself, but with your colleagues. So please enjoy the forum. You can go online and share it with people. There will be 4 issues this year. Every year is 4, but this is the 50th. There'll be like key articles through the years. It might be helpful, and they're free. That's the best part. Like I said, over the last 50 years, 3,000 articles, 2,700 authors, 139 countries. Thank you. We're done. We're a little bit late, I'm sorry. I know, you showed me the sign and I forgot about it.
Loved it.
Just take care of yourselves, good ideas, good people. I'll just give you some structure. Yeah. Who's from South Africa?